Now we have a polar transistor here on the output, minus to minus, plus to plus. It's coming off of the rectified. Only positive pulses are coming out of this. Um, and then, yep, same exact setup. So let's check the standing voltage. So to begin with, there is 0.08 volts. Okay, and now going to hook up the power and watch. And then this is Stanley Meyer's step charging effect. It's not very good, or not very fast, because I mean, we're talking about a very small setup here. The choke or the coil is not wound to purpose. We don't have any inductors, but yeah, nonetheless, it'll just climb and climb and climb. This is a 16 volt rated capacitor. Yeah, I don't want to touch it. It will get up to about 21 volts, 21 and a half or so. That's past its rating. It stays very cold to the touch. And if I disconnect, I tested with my tongue. Call me crazy, but there's definitely a charge. It feels like a 9-volt battery. Quite a bit, a little bit stronger than 9-volt. Nothing too bad. But now, so we have a step charging capacitor. We are putting in pure voltage, and yet on the output is, quote, hot. It has electrons. The electrons are being furnished by the electrolyte in the capacitor. If we were to, so since this is a square wave, it's turning on and then off, on, off. I hit resonance, so it's pretty much always on. There's always, so it's kind of impossible to turn off that. What we have to do now, I have to gate this frequency. I have to turn it on and off just by hitting the reset pin on the 555. But when you hit the reset pin, it'll turn the whole circuit off. What will happen is you'll drop down to 0. Now this voltage, I'll show you. I'm just going to disconnect. The voltage stays. See, we'll slowly drain. It's kind of a little bit of a leaky capacitor. That's a serious charge. All secondaries, in my research, I have found that all ungrounded secondaries are cold electricity. They're either missing the electrons, or the electron is in a 0 degrees phase or something, laying flat or something like that. But I think it's actually cold, that the magnetic field that's coming off of the primary is what everyone is, striving for, is radiant energy. This coil picks it up and puts out a pure voltage. I don't think that there is much of electrons, if any source, coming out of there. If there are, it's coming from the actual coil's wires itself. Now we're almost up to full charge, 20.3. Now I wish I had an LED or something, because this capacitor is now charged, ready to power a load. It's only 20 volts, but 20 volts can light a light for a split second. But what's happening is pure voltage comes off of the secondary. In even my high voltage tests of hitting this with 120 volts and then dumping it through a spark gap to another larger coil, you can see it on my YouTube videos. Even that secondary, even though it's 100,000 volts, is cold. It won't hurt me. I can touch it. If I leave it there too long, it'll eventually burn a little hole in my skin or something. But it's, for the most part, it travels over my skin, the skin effect, to ground. This does the same thing. It's only at 20 volts, yet if I touch it, I represent not that big, I mean a really big resistor, so it drains a little bit. It's actually doing a lot better. It seems to be conditioning or something, holding a better charge every time I charge it. But I think this is radiant energy coming into here, and we're potentializing the electrons of the electrolyte. And then if I was to disconnect, so every off pulse, I turned on a separate circuit on the plus and minus to a light, like right here. I would make the electrons, since no electrons can come from the circuit, this is isolated, I just have voltage, the electrons would actually come out of the capacitor, and they would light the load, the electrons would jump shell, photons would be released. Now if we're talking Myers, and we convert this to a water fuel cell to behave in a capacitor manner, just like this, and then power the load, the water's electrons would temporarily migrate into the load and then back. But while they're migrating, when that electron leaves, the resultant is hydrogen and oxygen, because you disassociate, you steal that electron in the covalent bonding. So we have to start thinking this through. In Meyer's patent, his foreign patent, he plainly states, I mean, he refers to it as nothing but the water capacitor. So, yeah, guys, I think I'm on the right track here, and we'll see. I'm insulating right now the outside of my tube set of my positive and the leads of both the negative and the positive. So the only voltage zone that touches the water is going to be in between, in that gap. And I'm theorizing that I won't get high voltage skin effect across the top of the water. It'll start holding a better charge, and if I can get the EEC, the electron extraction circuit, going, where I turn on a separate circuit when this circuit turns off, then I think we'll start seeing some really good results. And yeah, that's about it.